Hi, guys. My episode today is about homelessness and how we need action. We don't need mayors that don't know how to handle this problem, and we don't need governors who don't take a stand and make sure that their governors have a plan and a timetable and a budget, that there is no accountability from the head of your state, which is your governor, to your mayors. Now, in the US, homelessness has been a major problem since the 80s. I mean, I remember that's when it really hit my um, horizon, that it was a big issue. And here we are, right? And so there's a lot of programs that do help people out of that precarious situation, and some people avail themselves of it and others don't. But I believe if we really simplify the issue and really boil the matter down, that is a way that we can roll up our sleeves and actually clean up our communities and make them safer for everybody. Because let's face it, there's a couple of issues with homelessness. Number one, it is the recipe for endangerment. Whether you are a woman, whether you're elderly, whether you're a child, God forbid, and you're in this situation, and we know that that occurs, or you're, a young man, it doesn't matter. You are vulnerable if you are homeless. If you have a camper to be living in at, say, a campsite, that's one thing. But having a camper on a side street is a whole nother thing. Because endangerment isn't just you, okay? But it's also the community around you. Because if you are so vulnerable that you are living in a trailer, odds are, and you might be working, you might be able to still hold your job down if you have a trailer. But you may not be able to afford, medical care or, all the supplies and things that you need. But if you are not in a camper and you are doing the tent thing, or God forbid you're just sleeping outside, or you are sometimes in a shelter and sometimes not, that's a whole recipe for harm right there. Because I know of people who have been sexually assaulted while camping. They were homeless and they were staying in a park. This person had a child, 2 children with her, 2 little girls, and I don't believe that the little girls were assaulted, but she was. So, rape is a thing. Being beat up, being mugged. When you're homeless, it is a precarious situation. And I'm just saying, as Americans, whatever party you're in, it's nonpartisan. We need to care enough about our American sisters and brothers, and certainly our vets and the elderly and the children. I mean, the vulnerable of the vulnerable who are living outside. We need to care more. Because if you can imagine for a moment needing medication, or if you're a woman and you're on your cycle, or you're just sick and you're living outside. Think about heat waves. Think about freezing temperatures. Um, and that's why some of the cities that have the moderate weather do get a lot of homeless. And so one city I wanted to just point out, sorry, Governor Newsom, is Oakland. So Oakland's got amazing mild weather. I know, I worked there. And they had last year documented 10,000 people. So they have a city of homeless in their city. Now, in those situations where you've got just a ton of encampments going on, like many Bay Area cities do, and of course Southern California, we need to not normalize it. And I know many of the citizens are just fed up because it becomes, not only does it not become safe for those homeless people, which we need to care about, whether they are addicted or have mental health problems or whatever the case is, they're people and we need to care. God loves those people. God cares about those people. And we need to be God's hands and feet and help them. But also the community around that interfaces with those folks feel endangered, because they could be, the victims of, a mugging or whatnot. It doesn't feel safe. I know, for me personally, as a woman, when I go to a stoplight continually throughout town and there is a person who's just looking like they've been through the war, and they want money from me. Now sometimes I do give money at the stoplight or at the freeway off ramp. You know, some I have. Sometimes I just don't have the cash on me and I don't do it. But I had a homeless man at a Maverick gas station in my town right near my home yell at me because I had just bought a meal for a homeless woman. She looked homeless. She couldn't even speak. She was so messed up. She was inside of the gas station and I bought her, I think, a sandwich. Anyways, she followed me out to my car, right? That's a little scary. But, you know, I dealt with that. That was fine. That was good. But there was a homeless man watching the whole interaction also at the gas station. And he called out to me for money. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't have any cash, which I didn't. And he let me know he did not approve of that. Okay, I've had that happen a few times where people in need have come up to me for money, and if I say no, sometimes they just get triggered. I've been called the B word because I didn't give money. So the answer to me is to think like a businessman. Doesn't have to be Trump, but just think like a solution provider. Think the way the military does. There's an objective, there's a timetable, there's a contingency plan, and there's sometimes like the wraparound services. Now I know that we have a lot of that going on, but it's not working if we're seeing people pile up under the overpasses, pile up in our malls. You know, we see solicitation going on our streets. You know, prostitution, and I'm not judging not one of those people. I'm not judging the prostitute. I'm not judging somebody who steals so that they can eat. I'm saying if we corral our budget and make it a priority to take care of our Americans, and don't be spending dollars on a sculpture that's $100,000 and you stick that sculpture in the park in front of your city hall building. Okay. I'm talking about where I live in Nevada. Do we want to have sculpture? Well, of course, we want to have artwork and sculpture. You know, that's great. But that is not a priority. And we certainly don't need to spend an exorbitant amount of money on something like that when we have human beings that we could be taking care of. Now, you know, we have, in my community, a campus to care for the homeless. But it has been so riddled with problems. And when I say problems, I mean the homeless people are so afraid to stay there. They say that drugs are dealt there, not just by the people, but the staff sell drugs to the inhabitants of the shelter. The beds are, you know, all sexes can stay under the same roof. The same section of the building has women and men. Okay, no. So we need to have some smarter folks at the wheel and separate out the sexes, for goodness sakes. And there needs to be continual oversight so that these places are truly safe. But what I'm talking about, and I'm just going to wrap this up, is I'm saying the corruption needs to go. We need to cut the fat and corruption out of our city budgets and redirect money to deal with the homeless. And it can be like this. It's a clean, safe place where people have access to toiletries and bathing on a regular basis. And every inhabitant, every participant in that program must contribute to that facility. They must clean the bathrooms, do meal prep, do landscaping. You have to contribute in order to live there, and you should also be paying rent. So everybody should be required to work. If you can't work because you just cannot work, maybe you are truly elderly or you are so mentally impaired that you cannot work. Okay, well, those are different situations. And maybe those people don't have the timetable to leave that program. But most people should have a timetable that they become self-sufficient and move out. And there also needs to be Section 8 housing, rent-controlled housing. We must have, because we have skyrocketing rents here in Nevada. And people get tossed out of their living situation because maybe they get medical bills that they have to pay, and that removes money that they were going to allocate to rent. Now they're on the street. If they don't have a safety net of family that can take them in or is willing to take them in, then boom, they're on the street. That can be any one of us. That can be you, that can be me. So there has to be, I'm sorry, but there just has to be some price controlled housing. We have to be humane. Not everybody is going to make a ton of money and be able to afford these property increase value rents. Okay, I'm not saying that can't be a thing, and properties are an investment, and we know that values rise and we want that, but you have to have income commensurate. Minimum wage is not going to allow you to live in a safe neighborhood and rent a house, because here in my community it's $2,000 to rent a small house. Okay, apartments here are $1,700 a month, easy, for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. So if you're making minimum wage, or something close to that, there's no way. You're going to have 4 or 5 people come in on a house. And I mean, that's what some people do. And I mean, that's fine if you want to do that. But you may not want to do that. You may not be able to find people who are consistently trustworthy with paying their fair share. I mean, if it's a family that wants to all go in on a place together, I mean, hey. But we do need to have some rent controls going on. So I think it's simple. The other part, and this is some tough love, if you choose not to live in a government-funded facility that has much oversight, and maybe the oversight is not the government. No. It's a private enterprise. Okay? We just have to have neutral parties that are not invested overseeing these places. But if you choose not to do that, you may not, as an alternative, live on the street. No, you don't get to do that. It's either you enter this program where you get training and case management, and the point is to recover, and the point is self-sustainability. If you don't want to go that route, jail. Why? Because you are better off in jail, housed, warm, safe, with meals, with showers, with running toilets, than you are living in the forest somewhere where any animal or person could get to you. And we know that people do commit crimes sometimes just to go back to get the 3 meals a day. People do that. So if that's what you'd rather do than recover mentally and emotionally and rise to a better level in your life and be able to obtain and keep employment, if you'd rather go to jail, okay, well, I guess that's where our tax dollars need to go, because you cannot be endangered out on the street in the heat and the freezing and make other people scared and create a mess. Create just a total mess from where you're living. No. So I think it's just the road to recovery through a time restricted stay. Maybe it's 2 years. If you are elderly or completely disabled, maybe you get routed to a low rent situation that your SDI can afford. Okay. Or maybe there's a section within this housing that could also be that solution. But do you see where, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, can you see where this might make sense? I would love to hear from the Democrats. I would love to hear from the wokes. I would love to hear from the teens, from the under 40s, from the seniors, from the vets on this. Because I think that this is a doable thing. But the component that makes it work is the consequence. If you do not enroll in this program, it's jail. You get a choice, but the street is not the choice. Okay? It's got to be brought down to just bare bones. It's got to be simple. I'm not saying that we ignore the mental illness component, the addiction component, but those things have to be dealt with in order for people to stay. Otherwise, we're just repeating the situation that's out on the street. You have a choice. If you don't want to get sober, if you don't want to get on a mental health program and consistently be using your medication, then you're going to have to opt for jail. Or, I don't know, you get a bus ticket to wherever your family lives, but you can't stay in our community. You can't make it unsafe for yourself and others. No. So I would love to hear what you all think about that. Okay, think smart, and I'll see you on another episode. Please hit subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. Take care.